Welcome to Burning River Radio, where we only talk about teams that play Central Division 2 years in a row. Topic of discussion on this show. I'm Joe Coblitz, and I'm joined, as always, by a whole lot of Lada, Justin, at JL_baseball.
Yo.
And you can follow me at Burning River BB if you'd like to.
I don't recommend it, but that's okay.
I do because I'm really funny and I have all these K-stats. It's really important. Nobody else... I wanted to talk about something else, but I'll start with this. I've been keeping track of the Indians' strikeouts all year, different aspects of it. The biggest one may be Corey Kluber as an individual, moving up the all-time rankings in career, and then now he's moving up the single-season rankings, and he's got a good chance he's going to finish 6th in Indians history in single-season strikeouts for just this year, and he missed a month of the season. So, that was incredible to me anyway. And then the season, there's going to be more strikeouts in baseball this year than any other year ever, probably. There's a chance it's second to last year, but it's probably going to be first. The Indians broke the American League record last week, and they never mentioned it on STO. They still haven't mentioned it. They every strikeout furthers the record that they already broke, and they've never mentioned it. It floors me. And so I keep looking at Fangraphs. Is this right? I'm saying the right things, right?
Is it possible that maybe this whole? I mean, yeah, they broke the records, but is it possible that these records aren't as big a deal because of how many strikeouts there are in the game today? As a staff, it's impressive.
But the funny thing is, He spent 10 minutes talking about how they were going to be the first team to average 10 per 9.
Right, as I was going to say, that's the first time a team would do that.
So you think about that. There's more games played now than have ever been played before, or the same amount as the last 30 or 40 years. But before that, they played less games. It's not like they used to play 170 games, and now they play 162. So there's more games played, and they're going to set a record for highest K per 9. They have to set the record for most strikeouts, too. It fits. So it should be an obvious thing. But whatever. And they will set the Major League record. This is Sunday. They are on pace to set it in 4 days.
And they're going to have 3 200 strikeout guys because Bauer should eventually get to 200.
Yeah. So Friday they should break the Dodgers record.
Have they ever had 3 200 strikeout guys in the same rotation in the season?
I can look that up real quick here. I don't know offhand. I do know that. Sorry, what was that?
They had Louis Tiant and Sam McDowell as the.
1968 was the year of the pitcher, which kind of like this year, it may get a little diminished in importance. And both of them, I guess. Louis Tiant in 68 had 264. That's actually the last time someone other than... There's 2 guys, Feller or Herb Score in 1956 and Louis Tiant in 1968 are the only guys that aren't Feller. McDowell got 250 ever for the Indians. 250 is Feller, McDowell, or Kluber. That's it.
So what you're saying is,
Tiant scores.
And Sam McDowell is not he was not an MLB Hall of Fame, just the Indians, right?
Yeah, he had some issues.
Well, no kidding, really.
But but also his career, the problem is his career ended too early. I think it's kind of like Albert Bell, where he was hated by the media and his career ended too early. Whereas I think if he was just hated by the media, Ted Williams was hated by the media and he's in the Hall of Fame. I mean, if you keep it going long enough,
they can't avoid you.
Get put in eventually, unless you have some steroid thing or whatever. Okay, let's see. I finally got that number up. You asked. There were 2 guys in 1960 and 1968. Other than that, they've never even. Oh, and 2 guys in 2015.
So they never had 3.
3. They've only had 2 3 different times.
So they're gonna have 3 this year, unless Bauer just really struggles.
in 67, 68, it was McDowell and Tiant both years that had 200. We're talking about not 250. So it's the guys who have 200. 5 that ever did it were Feller. Then Score did it twice. Then 6 times. Tiant did it twice within those McDowell years. Gaylord Perry did it all 3 years he was with the Indians. Eckersley did it once. And then you go from 1976 to 2000 before there's another one. Cologne did it twice, Sabathia, 3 Klubers, Nekrasco.
Jeez.
It's just like, so I do think it's a big deal because of that. Because it's not like, and that's like when they talk about the offense being bigger now. It's funny, strikeouts are higher than ever, offense is greater than ever at the same time. But when they talk about that, they ignore like the 1930s. The 1930s were a huge offensive boom. Like there were tons of run scores. Like records were set that were never broken. The Indians, like home run records were set in the 30s that didn't get broken until the 50s. You know, there were a lot of things that happened there. RBI record that was set in the 30s wasn't broken until Manny Ramirez broke it in 1999. So there were a lot of things that happened back then that whole decade gets thrown out, I feel.
Well, which just tells you how bad the Indians had to be between the late 50s and early 90s.
Yeah, and 1993. They were good in 94.
Well, I mean, as I said, early 90s, so you can say really early 90s, yeah.
All right, so anyway, what I wanted to start on was what's bigger for you? What's more exciting? Winning 22 games in a row or clinching the Central Division at midnight because the Twins lost?
I think most people probably expected. If you didn't, there were like a few writers that were, I don't know what they were thinking when they made their predictions in Cleveland, that predicted that the Indians would not win the division. So I think like 90% of people were already guessing the Indians were going to win the division, and even without the 20 streak, they were still going to win it. You'd never expect.
Well, I can tell you, I have our predictions up, and our staff all picked Cleveland to win. The funny thing is, everybody but Mike picked Detroit to come in second, and they're going to come in fourth, I believe.
Did everybody pick Detroit to come in second?
Everybody except Mike picked Detroit to come, and I thought they would too. I was definitely right there, and I picked KC 3 and Minnesota 4. So almost everybody picked Minnesota 4th. Gavin had them 5th.
Well, I mean, it's hard to. I think Minnesota do what they've done is hard to predict.
Yeah, but you didn't answer my question.
Oh, it's the winning streak for sure.
Oh, it's the winning streak. Yeah, I think so too. And I wrote I just wrote a piece on Sunday morning about the winning streak as a whole, since it was finally over. You could kind of reflect on it. And I started off saying that the Indians didn't even care if they won those doubleheaders, the doubleheaders against New York and Detroit. I feel like on each of those games, and especially when you look at what Francona's lineups were at those games, like the first game, he put everything out there. Let's win the first game of the doubleheader. The second game is like, no, let's give everybody a day off and just go out. And they ended up winning them. And I said the reason I didn't think they needed to win those games was, one, they had already won the Yankee series by the time they played that last game. They had already won both the season series and that individual series. And they were like 5 games ahead of the Twins. And to me, a team that's that good and is winning series against playoff contenders, like they split Boston, they beat New York. You know, like you're winning those series, and you're that far ahead with just a month left. You don't have to win every single game. So I had kind of put the Central Division away back then. So when they clinch it with essentially 2 weeks left in the season, or 12 games left in the season, it's like, who cares? Like, we knew they were going to clinch it, but to win 22 in a row is really special.
Well, I mean, they won 14 in a row last year. No one expected that. And then, of course, you have the window company who, sets that special offer for if they win 15 in a row, they'll give away free windows. So clearly nobody was expecting the Indians to win 15 in a row for winning 14 in a row last year, because how much luck has to go into that.
Absolutely. And I think, and somebody was complaining because some of the national people, some idiots, that are fans of other teams, got mad and jealous of the Indians or whatever. and they were saying that it was all luck. And this person on Twitter said none of it's luck. And I was like, no, a lot of it is luck. Like, you need the base. If you don't have a team that can win 20 out of 30 games, or 20 out of 35 games, you have to have that team that can win that many games out of a stretch, 2 in a row. to have that, you still have to be a good team. You can't be a team that's only going to win 60 games in a season and win 22 games in a row.
Well, I mean, think about it. Like, everyone's stupid point last year about how, well, if you take away the 14-game winning streak, they're just an average team. But that assumes that they would lose 14 in a row. I mean, there's a very good chance they could have gone 10-4 in that 14-game stretch, which is still pretty good. And then in the 22-game stretch, who's to say they don't go 17-5? That's
and there's the point. Some people were complaining because the opponents were too easy, which they weren't. They were at the end, but not at the beginning. They played Boston, was the first team they beat, and then they swept New York in 4 games.
And
those are good teams that they beat. And they beat Minnesota in it too. And Minnesota is a playoff contender at least. But what they didn't you have to take into account, if they had lost to the White Sox or the Tigers, everyone would talk about how awful it is that they lost. Like, not just, oh, it's just another loss like anybody. No, you're terrible because you lost to this worst team ever. Well, if you're going to take it that way, then you have to take the corollary as well. So you have to win. Like, they're expected to win, and they did win. So there's nothing else they could have possibly done.
Right. What I don't understand people expected. Like, the winning streak doesn't count because they played bad teams. I mean, how many bad teams did the Giants play in theirs? Like, I'm sure the Giants.
You know what's funny?
Play 26. They played 26 games in a row at home. Number one.
Yeah. But the Giants, I looked at theirs. Theirs was also it's in September, at least partially in September, and the A's a few years ago was in September. And I think that may have something to do with it as well, that you do have those teams that have kind of given up on the season. A little easier to roll over on a few of those opponents.
I think we talked about it last week. We might have, where we said there's no way this winning streak happens for the Indians unless it's September, because of how they were able to manipulate the roster.
Well, yeah, that's what happened last year. They got caught into a situation where they ended up having to cut Jabba Chamberlain. If you remember,
want to do that, right?
Yeah, they cut Jabba Chamberlain because they needed another starting pitcher for the next day. They burned Trevor Bauer. Whereas on this case, if there had been a game where they went 14 or 15 innings, they could have used Ryan Merritt or Sean Morimondo. And I think they would have. I think because using Bauer in a late inning relief role is not going to happen again for the rest of the year. Like, I feel like Francona is primarily focused on winning the playoffs. He's not focused on winning any more games this year. He'll try to.
Well,
he'll put on a lineup.
Home field advantage.
Yeah, they do. But the fact that they had Jose Ramirez out for 2 games when Ramirez was obviously ready to play today, that kind of tells you something. And every one of these injuries, these little tiny injuries that they've held guys out. Jay Bruce was out for like 4 days
with a neck. Yeah. It
definitely seemed like he probably could have played through that. And I think this is them being super, super cautious and making sure that nobody gets in.
You hope that's
takes
the case,
a little
because
injury and making it worse.
Yeah, you hope that's the case, because yesterday I was guilty of this. They had that conversation with Francona before the game, the media did, and the original plan was Miller was going to pitch today, and they said, well, they've changed that, and we'll talk about it after the game. Well, they didn't say it was for him to pitch on Saturday instead of Sunday, so everybody, and myself included, took that as, okay, that means Miller's knee must not have responded well, and they don't want to pitch him in the next, his next appearance. They want to see where to go. So I'm not sure what that says about his knee, and they only used him for 2 pitches, which is fine, but they got him into a situation where he had to come in with runners on, which I think is what they were trying to find a spot for him to do.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they ran him out this first outing, and he threw 11 pitches and had almost a 1-2-3 inning. I think he got a little bloop single, but because against the Royals, that's what they do. But I would assume they're being super cautious to everybody, because when they said that, Geyer's not playing for 5 days, Chisenhall's not playing for 5 days because of the calf again.
Well, I think they said Chisenhall's not even going to go on the road trip, too.
Geyer's definitely not. I don't think they said that about Chisenhall, did they? I know that.
That's what I heard, and I'm just making shit up anyway. I know that Ramirez is supposed to be back for the first game.
Yeah, well, I mean that works out well for Ramirez because if his hamstring has any sort of soreness, you give him off Saturday, Sunday, and then they're off Monday, so that's 3 days off, especially before heading west. He didn't look like it was bothering him too much when they were spraying champagne all over each other. Then again, neither did Chisenhall, so I guess you never know. And then Brantley looked like he was moving fine, but I still don't think that's gonna.
Honestly, that's what bothers me most about Brantley, but I think you can just say he's done. I wish they would say that, and I'll say this because I've seen Mike fucking bragging on Twitter about how right he is all the time, right? About how he said he was going to be out for the year, or he said he was going to be out for 2 months when it originally happened. Then he came back in like 2 weeks and played amazingly for a month, and then was out again. Sprained ankle, he'd be fine.
Well, I mean,
it's obviously something much more serious than that.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I guess I'm not an expert on sprained ankles. I mean, I've had plenty myself, but that's hard to say that. I don't know. Basketball players have missed a lot of time with sprained ankles. How long has he been out, though? He was been out since, what, early August? Because they got Jay Bruce before that really long road trip in August.
But if you're talking about it being the same one, then you're talking about a sprained ankle that has lasted since like May.
Yeah.
Because that was when he originally went down. And again, I have it on my game-by-game spreadsheet. I don't have it here.
Yeah,
but
it's been a while.
It was really early in the season that he initially went down on it, and that's when Mike came out and said that he was going to miss 2 months, and I was like, no, it's a sprained ankle. He's going to miss 2 weeks, and then he missed 2 weeks and came back. And like I said, he played incredibly. It wasn't like Kipnis, where Kipnis has kind of struggled. He really killed it when he was on the team.
Yeah, he looked like. I mean, he wasn't as good as he was in 2015, but he looked like an above-average player, like he has been his entire career. He's not been great, but he's been above average.
But he did that last year too when he came back for 10 games.
He looked okay.
He was great. Now I think he stole multiple bases and he hit like 6 doubles or something in 10 games. He really, really crushed it last year. So it's just kind of surprising.
Yeah, I mean the ankle. I mean maybe it's more than an ankle. I don't know. I mean, maybe it should be telling it's more than an ankle because they traded for Jay Bruce the same day that the fact he got hurt.
But they could fit Bruce in the lineup even if Chisenhall and Brantley were healthy. I think it's because he was hurt that they were like, well, what if one of these guys isn't healthy? Then we'll need somebody else. But I think they still could have used them even if they were all healthy. They just wouldn't use Almonte or, Geyer maybe.
Well, that was
they'd find a way.
That was everybody's question: was if Chisenhall and Brantley both came back healthy, that they'd probably shove Chisenhall back to center briefly and
let at least against right-handers.
Right. Yeah, and now that's not. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, we're only 5 innings into this whole Jason Kipnis thing. He obviously didn't get a ball hit his way today, but
I'm trying to think. I have my opinions on Kipnis in center. And did we talk about this at all last week?
I don't think so. I was wondering about that because
I don't recall.
I don't think Kipnis ever spent any time.
I think it may have came out after that. What?
It did. Kipnis didn't spend any time in Arizona. I think he went right to Mahoning Valley, didn't he?
You mean years ago?
Yeah, when he was drafted, I think he went right to Mahoning Valley.
It would have been before I was. Well, we weren't even in Arizona when he was drafted.
Okay.
Florida.
Still in Florida?
Yeah, 2009 was the first year here.
I think he was drafted in 2009, wasn't he?
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Now you're gonna make me look up more things.
Yeah.
I moved here in 2010, and I only watched a couple games that year at the AZL, so I didn't. Oh, he was drafted in 2008.
Okay. And he played, I don't know, he played a few innings,
No, he
obviously.
signed it. He was drafted by the Padres in 2008. He signed with the Indians in 2009.
Yeah.
Now, in Mahoney Valley. In his second season, he was in Akron.
Holy crap. So
In
I
his
know,
third season, he was in Cleveland.
I knew he skipped Lake County. Did he also skip Carolina?
No, he played 54 games in Kinston
Kinston, right, wow.
before, but then he played 79 in Akron in his second season.
Yeah, he moved quick.
So he flew up the line. He played 7 games in center field in Mahoning Valley and 18 in left field.
Right. And that was
all
it.
he
He
played
hasn't
in
been in the
Mahoning
outfield
Valley.
since.
So he never played second base in Mahoning Valley at all. And then
Right, it
his
wasn't
second
until he
year,
got to Carolina. Or
he
Kinston.
learned a brand new position in his second season, jumping up multiple levels. That's really impressive. I didn't realize that.
That is. So that makes you think maybe he can at least be passable as a center fielder for 6 innings.
Well, first thing, we know how fast everybody is now, and I guess you could look that one up if you want on Baseball Savant, how fast Jason Kipnis is.
And it's not fast.
He's not. He's never looked fast. He's a very smart base runner, kind of like Carlos Santana. Carlos Santana's not fast, but he'll steal you 3 or 4 bases in a season and usually not get caught. And he'll take an extra base every single time. I swear, every year he's like number 3 or number 4 on the extra base list when I tally up the extra bases at the end of the year, where he's always moving. And it could be because he's on base more than everyone else, so he has more chances. But he does take them. Like Edwin Encarnacion is also on base. Yeah, Encarnacion's on base. Napoli last year had some of the worst base running stats I've ever seen. He always was trying to take an extra base and always got caught.
Yeah, and everybody praised him last year. Oh, he's a smart base runner. He's always aggressive. He's always trying to take the extra base.
Yeah, well, I like aggressive base running too, but you have to be smart about it. And Kipnis is smart about it, and that's. I'm trying to think. I do the top 10 updates at the end of every season, where I update the top 10 stats, anything that has changed. And I know last year Kipnis and Brantley both got in or maybe the year before even, got into the top 10 stolen base percentage. Like as the best stolen base percentage, and it's like Robbie Alomar, and then those 2 guys.
Pretty smart runners, yeah.
So they're very good at what they do, but he's not fast.
Well,
it's that they both pick their spots.
He's still above league average for speed. He's not below the threshold on what they consider league average based on that metric.
But league average includes DHs and right fielders and first basemen and catchers. Where is he compared to center fielders?
I'll look that up right now while we talk.
Yeah, so
I'm still convinced he can find. I mean, like you just said, he learned a brand new position in 1 year, and you move up 2 levels. That's really impressive. I don't think there's any other way you can.
It is. It's really crazy, but it's not. It's not the same. For one thing, the problem is he's moving from an easier position, right? Second base is considered one of the easiest positions, I believe.
No, that's still a tough position. I mean, a lot of guys. If you look at, did you read? I don't think you read Brian Kenny's book, The Head of the Curve.
No.
The defensive spectrum is usually when guys. Obviously, first base is the lowest. Besides DH, but first base is the lowest end of the defensive spectrum. But usually, guys move from the infield to the outfield. Maybe not center field, but they move to the infield, the outfield.
But I swear I remember seeing the list, like the actual list, and it was like shortstop, catcher, center field, third base, and then maybe second base.
Okay, but
it's in that bottom half of.
Yeah.
As far as how easy it is, and to put him in center field, which is really should be your second best defender. Like shortstop should be your best defender. Center field should be your second best.
That's always the case, yeah. So Jason Kipnis is at 27.2 on sprint speed, which is
meters per second. What are we talking here?
Huh? Feet per second.
Is it meters per second?
No, it's feet per second. So that's 0.2 feet per second above the league threshold. For center fielders, for the league, yeah, he's barely above. I mean, there's only a handful. Adam Jones is below him. Tyler Naquin's below him, which is sad, actually.
Well, if Naquin's below him, then I mean that just answered that question, I guess.
Yeah, Jackie Bradley is barely above him, and Jackie Bradley's considered, by the way, a great defender. Obviously,
well, and obviously it isn't all about speed.
No, Greg Allen, by the
I
way,
can tell you
27.4. That's actually kind of
slow.
disappointing. Yeah, I mean Zimmer's 29.9, which when you're saying 27.4 to 29.9, that's barely 2 seconds, but that 2 seconds makes a big difference. But so I'm a little surprised Greg Allen's much lower on that list.
It may be a sample size thing too, that they get more accurate as they get more data.
I'm going to have to go back and look too. I want to see where Austin Jackson is, because there's another component into it. So Austin Jackson,
I will say,
27.5. Yeah. So Jason Kipnis is aside from Almonte, which Almonte is probably the only guy that should be playing center field that's not named Jason Kipnis, because Greg Allen's faster and he's a better defender, but the rest of the guys in the team, I mean, I'm not putting Brandon Guyer in center. Austin Jackson, I wouldn't put in center, even though they do it.
Well, okay, so watching as much baseball as I do, I've seen plenty of guys, especially the last 2 years, they really focused on the Indians drafting these speedy guys.
Mm-hmm.
The last few years. So last year we had Trenton Brooks. This year we had Quentin Holmes. The year before, and Connor Capel last year. And the year before we had Gabriel Mejia. And all these guys are really fast. And all of them made stupid mistakes playing defense in center field. And sometimes, like Holmes especially, you'd see him mess up, and then he had time to turn around and fix it because he was so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And Gabriel Mejia, I've seen do that as well, where I'd root to a ball, and then he'll fix it, like halfway through, like, oh, okay, I got this. Whereas someone like, I still don't know how to pronounce his first name, but Kai Tom, I guess I'll call him Blaze Tom, he may be a better instinctual outfielder than those other guys, even though he's a short, fat guy.
Well, I mean, look at Abe Almonte. No one look. I mean, you don't Abe Almonte.
Yeah, Almonte is too, and he's not that fast, but he's better. So, but that's on instinct. So you need two things. You can be the fast guy who can mess up and fix it, like Bradley Zimmer, like Greg Allen, and the guys I mentioned, or you could be the great instincts, where you know exactly where to go, which I think Chisenhall's pretty good at in right field at least. Honestly, I think Brantley's pretty decent at least in left field when he has played. But those things are learned. You don't just get that overnight. So Kipnis doesn't have the speed, and he doesn't have the instincts, which is not instincts like evolutionary instincts. It's more repeated behavior instincts,
right.
Like that you get.
Yeah.
But he hasn't done that, so he doesn't have either of those two things. So I've kind of got a running list in my head of things I'd rather see than Jason Kipnis in center field, and I'm not sure. I thought about putting it on Twitter. I may put it in an article at some point. But I'm not.
I don't know. I think he does have the experience in college, and he does have the experience in a little bit in Mahoning Valley. Obviously, that's nowhere near the experience at the MLB level, because
we'll see. And I'll say this: experience with an AZL team is better than experience with college or Mahoning Valley, because they play on a major league field. The fences have to be 20 feet further out at Goodyear Ballpark than they are at most of those other fields. When you're playing center, that's a real center field. It's tough. There's triples all over the place. Well, you really got to know what you're doing.
I think the only thing that you see the difference in is reading the ball off a bat in the major leagues is so much different than the minors, because you've got better pitchers who can spin the ball better. You've got hitters who know how to create backspin and can hit certain pitches better. Whereas you're more likely to get a lazy can of corn in the minor leagues with guys who can't put the barrel on the ball and for pitchers who have below average spin rates on pitches. So that changes how you're going to be able to read the ball off the bat, because that's the first thing you do is you got to get a good read on it. Yeah. I don't know how great his route running is going to be, because if he's not used to reading the way the ball is going to spin, that's why I laugh at people who think who don't understand how complex playing defense in baseball is, especially in the outfield, is because it's not as easy as we'll just go out there and shag flies, because a Corey Kluber curveball, and for a guy to hit that into center field, it's going to react differently than how it would be if Sean Armstrong throws a fastball. The ball is not. You're not going to read the ball the same.
And I will say
different elite skills.
On that, if somebody does want to understand how that works, the best book I've read on that specific topic is a book called Men at Work, I believe. By George Will. And in particular, the chapter, there's 3 sections. There's one on pitching, which is Oral Hershiser, which is kind of cool. There's one on win, but the one I'm talking about is the one by Cal Ripken, or where he interviews Cal Ripken. And the way Cal Ripken knew what pitch was going to throw, he would shift, but he wouldn't shift early, because then the hitter would know where he was going to shift. So he would start shifting as the pitch was thrown, and then hitters started catching on to this type of pitch it would be by the way he was shifting. So he would shift the wrong direction as the pitch was thrown and then go the right way. And it was just all this cat and mouse game and stuff, and it's really in depth. And of course, shortstop is
the hardest position,
by far the most difficult position on the baseball field to play. I guess. Well, catcher is probably the most painful, but
it's difficult.
Having the physical abilities. You see a lot of fat catchers. You don't see a whole lot of fat shortstops.
Yeah, I mean,
except Johnny Peralta.
Johnny Peralta.
He was
I really think that's an Erik Wedge philosophy. It is a misused one. Is he said that Peralta made all the routine plays, and that's what you want.
Well, that's what Jason Kipnis does.
Right, and I wonder.
Honestly, at second base, and I would say this as far as about the things I'd rather see than Kipnis in center. I would rather see Kipnis go back to second base. And then it depends on who you want in the lineup. Let's say you want Yandy Diaz in there, and for whatever reason you don't want Yandy Diaz in the outfield, put Jose Ramirez back in the outfield. He played it last year. It took him a little while to figure it out, but once he did, he was fine.
He was not good. That's such a misconception. We all thought he was.
He was bad at the beginning, but he got better.
If you look at
by the end.
Well, again, defensive.
But okay, then put him at third.
A lot of them say he was not great.
Okay, so put Jose at third and put Yandy in the outfield, where he's been playing the last 2 years.
They saw an experiment so fast.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things you could do, and if you do that, then you're talking about putting Chisenhall in center, maybe, or Jackson in center. Both of those are preferable to Kipnis in center. No, Jackson and Chisenhall.
They may do somehow with Tyler Naquin in center, pretty much in a platoon with Rajai Davis in center field last year. Mm-hmm. I think the question is, obviously, number one, is Kipnis's bat going to give you enough value? Not the rest of the season, because who cares what he does the rest of the season? You need him enough reps to be who he was to get to the postseason. You need Jason Kipnis to be Jason Kipnis in the postseason. And if he needs 45, 50 at-bats the rest of the season to get there, who cares if he gets 200 the rest of the way? You just need him to feel like he's got enough reps. But
but who is more valuable, him or Yandy Diaz?
Right. So is his bat in center field, is his bat going to make up for what he might cost you in center field, so much so that it's worth putting him out there? And does Yandy Diaz's bat produce enough to also kind of make up for that as well. Like, and plus the only way they can do it, I think that says they want Diaz on the roster. I don't think they'd be trying this if they didn't want
Well, no,
to
they've
find a way
said
to
that,
put
and
Diaz on the roster.
Francona said essentially that when somebody plays the way that Diaz has played lately, you can't
You got to
take
find
him
a
out of the
spot for him.
roster. And that was in that whole Kipnis piece where Kipnis said he would sit on the bench if he has to, and he'll play whatever position they need him to play.
Which, by the way, I don't think you can give him enough credit for.
No, that is great, and I think that's something that this whole team has done. At least it's funny. I guess when Cody Allen comes out early in the year and says, "Hey, you can give my saves to Andrew Miller if you need him to only pitch one inning at a time." As soon as your closer says that, and then more recently he said that if Brian Shaw was on the team first, that Brian Shaw would be the closer and Allen would be set, which I don't think is true. But
That might be true. Yeah.
But he said that, and when you're closer, the guy who is supposed to be Kenny Powers, the guy who's supposed to be the psychopath, he's that humble, at least outwardly. It makes it very difficult for anybody on the team to come out and say, "No, I am doing this." Like I remember Grady Sizemore, they wanted to bat him third because he was the best hitter on the team. So they said, "We want to bet you third." He said, "No, I'm only going to hit leadoff," and it was like, you're an asshole. They're trying to make the team better, and you're saying, "No, I'm only going to bat leadoff." Who cares about you? Bat third because they need you to bat third. Like, do it. And so Carlos Santana's went back and forth sometimes, but recently he's been so agreeable to anything that they've asked him to do.
Well,
Played right field. He said first. He said third, fourth, fifth, whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, Santana had to, like you said, grow into that because he got mad when he lost the first base job to
Cliff Johnson.
Cliff Johnson, yeah.
Chris Johnson.
Yeah, and Tito said he's got to work harder playing first base. But I mean, even before that, when they signed, and this tells you how.
Well, they moved him from catcher to third, and because they wanted to make him a DH, and he didn't want to play DH, and you know what? He fucking worked at it, and now he's the best first baseman in baseball. So,
yeah,
ecology worked.
Right, it did work because he was frustrated. He was frustrated by losing his catching time to Yan Gomes, and then he was frustrated that he lost first base. So, but before that, he offered to play third because he didn't want to DH. That didn't work out, but he worked at it and he was, gave it a shot. And then, the first base thing worked out, but he's also done the outfield now, and he's even agreed to hit leadoff. And I know, like, it's easier to say, yeah, I'll hit anywhere, whatever. But I mean, Santana's. I mean, it's good that Santana never changed his approach to hit leadoff. He was actually better at it.
Well, it's interesting. Like Lindor recently said something about how he didn't like hitting anything but leadoff, but he never said anything at the time. He waited until after they put him back into the leadoff spot to say, "Yeah, I didn't really like hitting down there. I like hitting leadoff. I'd prefer to be up there where I can steal bases and do whatever."
It's the same thing.
And so I like that, but they don't complain about it publicly. You see it from other teams a lot where they'll come out and complain about things publicly, and maybe it helps when you just went to the World Series and you've got the guy who's considered the best manager in baseball, and he's won 2 since he's been on the team, and you've got a core that's signed through 2020 for the most part, so you really shouldn't be starting shit.
Mm-hmm.
With the exception of Shaw and Santana, I guess they could, but they have it on the line because if they did something this year where they're like, "Oh, that guy's a bad teammate," that could cost them $5 million.
Right.
Like that could really hurt them. So you want to be the best defensive first baseman and the greatest teammate and top 15 hitters in baseball. Like you want to be all those things, not just one of them or 2 of them. And same with Shaw.
And you want the team that you play for when you're going into free agency to put you in the best position possible to cash in.
Yeah, like the opposite of what Lucroy did.
Whoops. Well, that's why. Like it's one thing for.
Well, he came off as a jerk, and now he's in Colorado.
And now he's not gonna cash in next year because he's played like shit.
Yeah,
he stays in Colorado, which is hitter friendly. I mean, like it's one thing for Jason Kipnis to say, I'll sit here and ride these rookies' coattails if I have to. I'll play the bench because, and this is nothing against him. He's already got his money. He's got a $72 million contract. He's set. Cody Allen, and because he's a pitcher, it's even harder. because he can blow his arm out, and that could be it. Knock on wood, that doesn't happen because I'm so tired of injuries with this team. But arbitration is so ass backwards for relievers that anybody who doesn't get a save doesn't get paid. Like if you're a middle reliever who has a 1.80 ERA,
cost himself some money. Definitely.
Right. It's going to cost him money in the long run because if they got Miller and Miller, soaked up some of his saves, that was going to cost him, X amount of dollars. And he said, "Screw it, I don't care. Let's win."
Like this year, he's only got like 27, I think, and I don't know exactly where it is, but usually you have a lot of guys have like around 40 saves in a season
for 91 teams. Yeah.
So an arbiter could look at that and say, well, you're not an elite closer because you only had 27 saves and these guys had 40, which is stupid. It's just like the 20 win season threshold, which I don't believe that any pitchers are going to get to 20 wins this year.
No, I know there's not.
Because Kluber has 2 more starts left and he's at 17. So
Sale, same thing.
Yeah, so I think they're all about and he's leading the league at 17. So the only way is if somebody, no, I don't think there's any way.
Nope.
Somebody up and make him pitch 3 games at 3 of the last 12 games.
So the original question though, okay, Tyler Naquin, I don't know if you saw the new StatCast stat they rolled out, which was outs above average last week.
No, I saw a couple people talking about it, but I haven't looked through it.
Yeah. So they told me for outfielders, which I find interesting. Last year, Tyler Naquin, out of 208 qualified outfielders, was 201st with negative 11 outs above average. By the same metric, which is really interesting to me because he didn't play the full year last year for suspension. Abraham Almonte was Brandon Geyer was much better, actually, but he was a part-timer. Geyer had 4 outs above average last year, and Almonte had 2. And Almonte is at positive 2 this year, outs above average. And he is the Indians' leader there. Brantley also has 2 outs above average too, but I think a lot of tribute to that is his. I guess maybe not. I guess it is just catches. It's not anything to do with throwing. I figured maybe his outfield assist played into that, but no, he's got 2 outs above average too. So by this measure, Abraham Almonte is the Indians' best defensive outfielder, even better than Bradley Zimmer, who's at an even 0.
Yeah, I'm not going to jump.
If that's true, but
jump on a brand new stat that just came out yesterday.
No, I'm not either. I'm just trying to.
I'll say, looking at it right now, here. 3 of the top 5 guys, 100% makes sense. Obvious. It's Byron Buxton is number 1, and then Lorenzo Cain is 4, and Kevin Kiermaier is 5. Those are 3 of the.
Yeah.
That's 3 of the best outfielders in baseball. Ender Inciarte, I have not seen play enough recently. I saw him play when he was with Arizona. I don't recall him being that good to be 2nd in baseball, but I guess it's possible. And then Mookie Betts is 3rd. And again, I don't really remember Mookie Betts being.
Historically, I mean, if you look at like Fangraphs stuff, I mean, it backs up Inciarte that he's been that good.
Okay, and Billy Hamilton is 11, which seems like he should be higher because he makes crazy catches that don't make any sense.
Right.
Gerard Dyson is 16. Another guy that really. Okay, but Adam Duvall is 13th. There's no way Adam Duvall is that good.
Well, I think park factors play into that too. Look how small the outfield is in Cincinnati.
Yeah,
it's easier to play the outfield there. But I mean, if you look at Fangraphs, the Indians don't have anybody in the top 30 in defensive runs saved or ultimate zone rating for 150 innings. They don't have anybody in the top 30. If these all match up, then I mean, how many? Actually, I lied about that. They do have someone in the top 30. I guarantee you'll never guess who that one person in the top 30 is.
Is it you're talking about just outfielders?
Just outfielders.
Brandon Geyer.
No, it's Jay Bruce.
Jay
Bruce has 8 defensive run saves, and he's 19th in UZR.
Heard that. When they got him, they said his numbers are finally better.
Yeah. But I mean, if these all match up, then the Indians' outfield's not that great. And
no, we knew that. It hasn't been that great all year. Gavin did something on it like in April about how shitty it was. I mean,
Right. If you're going to put Jason Kipnis out there, how much worse are you making it? But at the same time,
No, you can go negative.
You can, sure. I mean, here's another question too. You don't think that what happened last year is going to happen again, but can he avoid what happened to Tyler Naquin in Game 6? Like, is Jason Kipnis that bad? Would he be?
Well, it's weird because that was a rookie mistake. I think you chalk it up as he didn't take charge of a play he should have taken charge of.
But that same thing could happen in Kipnis.
Combined with the fact that he doesn't have the range or whatever, playing 20 games, he's got 12 games. Well, that's not that long. I guess I was thinking there's more time. I wouldn't be putting him in the outfield in the playoffs. There's not enough time to get him used to it. I think this could maybe be a thing for the future. Like next year, let's say Brantley's injury is really serious and for whatever reason he can't come back and they don't use his option, then maybe move Kipnis to left field or something. Maybe that's like where they're kind of going with this. I can't see him playing postseason in the World Series. He put Santana in right field in the World Series, but
yeah,
that's hard to think about doing something like that.
Okay.
When you have Greg Allen, you have him, and you can just they've scored so much recently, and that's we talk about the pitchers a lot. Kind of been focusing on them, especially on the website and on Twitter. Been focusing on how great the pitchers were during the streak, and they were fantastic. But they were scoring a ton of runs too. They had a 105 run differential in 22 games. You need to score those runs to have that. You not only need to hold the other team from scoring, but you have to score 105 more runs than the other team scored. So they are scoring plenty of runs right now.
Okay, but again, those runs came against inferior teams. They came against Detroit and the White Sox, who don't have good pitching, and the Orioles, even though they didn't score a lot of runs against the Orioles. But
they've also killed Chris Sale, and they beat the Yankees 4 straight, and they've got a decent pitching staff. I saw recently that they have the best pitching staff in baseball. So
yeah, that was a great article.
That was interesting. Because
there
was an earthquake in Los Angeles. Is no longer in baseball. They're gone, and the Indians got sucked up in a water spout.
Well, not yet. They're not in LA yet, so hopefully not.
No, in Lake Erie.
Oh, in Lake Erie. Oh, fantastic. Who knew? I was just downtown.
Missed the Browns. I don't know how.
I'm glad I escaped that because I was at the game today. I'm glad I got out in time. I mean, ultimately, this obviously comes down to just getting us hit enough to make it worth it playing center field. That's really what it comes down to. And realistically, you're not going to play Jason Kipnis in center field 9 innings in a playoff game. You're going to try to go through 3 at-bats with him and play defense and hope he doesn't, hurt you too bad out there. And you're going to put somebody else in center field. Now, that sets up for Greg Allen making it because unless you're going to put Almonte in the last spot, I
almost guarantee Greg Allen makes it.
I don't agree. I'd like that to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen.
You have to have someone who can play defense and run. I think they can take 6. They're only going to take 4 starters. I don't think that they put the 5th starter in the bullpen.
No,
as of right now.
Well,
I don't think they put Tomlin.
Because right now Salazar is in the bullpen, so he counts as a bullpen.
No, guy. Salazar will be. I think he will be in the playoff bullpen. I'm talking about Clevenger and Tomlin. One of those guys is not going to make the starting rotation for the postseason. I think the other guy is going to be left off the roster entirely. Spot that you don't have right now. I don't think they need more than 7 relievers.
Yeah, you saw the report last week. They're talking about carrying 14 position players.
An extra position player, so it's Greg Allen. I mean, that's just even if he's not a starter or whatever.
It's not going to be Gonzalez, I think, because they keep putting Urshela at second to make sure he can handle it, and I think he can.
Urshela will make the team. Mejia is not going to make the team. They don't need 3 catchers.
Obviously.
But that's who your guys are. They don't have that many position players with the team right now. It's not they didn't expand the position players nearly as much as they did the pitching staff.
Right. So I think the last spot comes down to Almonte or Allen. Well, and
both make the team because I don't think Brantley's there, and I don't think Chisenhall.
Well, Chisenhall and Geyer both might not be there now. You know, Geyer shut down for another
well,
week.
I definitely think there's a great chance that Geyer's not there, even if he's good, even if he's healthy. I would take Allen or Almonte over Geyer at this point. He just isn't hitting.
If they win the Wild, okay, let's say they hold on to the top spot, which they have a game and a half lead, which is essentially a 2.5 game lead because the Astros have to be a game better than the Indians to break the tie because the Indians on the tiebreaker. So they essentially have a 2.5 game lead in the best record race. So let's assume they hold on to that. Then you play the winner of New York, Minnesota, or LA, and you make the roster based on who wins that game because the roster doesn't have to be in until the day before the game. So I don't think. I mean, obviously anything can happen, but I don't.
Well,
think
you want to talk about bad. You want to talk about bad pitching? Look at the Angels. I mean, they get to play them this week, so it'll be interesting to see. But they have a terrible pitching staff,
right? And they're going to miss Garrett
Minnesota's terrible too.
Yeah.
So the only one that has a decent pitching staff of those three teams is going to be New York, and I would have to guess New York wins that game.
Sure, because they're going to throw Luis Severino.
You never know; it's a crapshoot.
It is. It's a one game. You never know.
Yeah, it gets them out of the way.
Right. So, but the Yankees don't have other than Aroldis Chapman.
Is Sabathia?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sure. I don't think he's going to start a playoff game. Maybe. They don't have a bunch of left-handers. So why would you use Geyer? Because are you really going to start Geyer against? I mean, I would guess that their rotation is going to be if they burn Severino in the wild card game. You've got Gray in game 1 of the ALDS, or Tanaka, one of those two. And then the third game is Severino. And then game 4, you can go back to Tanaka or Sonny Gray. None of those guys are left-handed. And Chapman is the only left-hander in that bullpen, I think, other than that they trust.
If you want to, and I would go. We've talked about this a few times now with the defense/offense platoon rather than a right-left platoon. So you had it with like a Jackson and Zimmer. And then you had it with Diaz and Urshela, and now maybe you have it with Kipnis too. If you want to go with the defensive route, start Urshela, leave Diaz on the bench, and there's your right-handed pinch hitter if you need one.
They'll still go the other way.
They probably will but you don't want to pinch hit. The problem is you don't want to pinch hit Urshela even for Perez or Gomes. It's not.
No, you don't. I mean, I don't know who your pinch hitter is. I guess whichever outfielder is healthiest. Like Jay Bruce is going to start.
Greg Allen wouldn't really be the option either.
You got to hope. You have to hope Chisenhall, I guess, is healthy. Because otherwise your pinch hitter is what? Almonte maybe? Like, let's say, what if Chisenhall and
like that all year
make it? Huh?
Man, it's been like that all year, though.
Yeah. So you got to hope it's Chisenhall,
all right,
I guess, but...
Yeah, we'll see if he's back. There's a better chance of him coming back, I think, than Geyer. I think Geyer
or Brantley, even obviously,
might be done. Well, I've already completely given up on Brantley.
I agree. Yeah, I hope Chisenhall comes back because that really makes things. You're right. That makes the bench. That might open a spot for Erik Gonzalez then, if Chisenhall does come back.
I don't see a purpose of Erik Gonzalez being on this team. Anyway,
he's faster than Urshela.
Who cares?
Yeah, but I agree with you because if they start Urshela and go to Diaz as the pinch hitter, the odds of again you have to look at the odds of the guys fail 7 out of 10 times and they're Hall of Famers by hitting 300, which batting average is stupid, but you're gonna fail 7 out of 10 times. Whereas think of how many balls might hit it to third base in any given game.
And it's funny because you brought it up today with Kipnis, which is he played the first, four innings?
5, yeah.
Or 5 innings. He played the first 5 innings, didn't get a ball, then they pull him and the next 2 get hit out to Greg Allen or 2 of the next 3 do.
Right.
It's like if you can predict when the balls are going to get hit to the position, like you can predict when the guy's going to come up in the order. Like that the Indians catcher is going to come up in the 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th inning at some point when it might matter. And you can pinch hit for him. Like, that going into the game. So if you have someone on the bench that you want to put in for that guy, you're like, okay, I can do that. And I know, once we get to the 6th, if something important starts happening, that's when I'm going to pull my defensive guy out and put in my hitter. But You can't do it the other way. You can't say, oh, in the 6th inning, something really important is going to happen at third base, so we better have our guy over there.
Well, I guess you can kind of predict that, which guys are likely to hit it where. Like, if you look at the Yankees lineup, and I don't know, this is obviously I'm just making up numbers, but if you predict that the Yankees as a team, if you look at their hitters, they hit the ball to center field, 60% of the time or 50% of the time, whatever.
Yeah, I guess you can do that.
You can look at that, does Kipnis stand to cost us big time playing center field today?
Mm-hmm.
Or, like today was a great day because Corey Kluber's pitching. Corey Kluber does not allow a lot of hits up the middle. Like, if you look at the numbers.
Well, he doesn't. He also strikes out 12, 13 guys per 9.
Right. So
he doesn't allow a whole lot of hits at all.
But if you have, I guess this is a really bad point because the Indians are, like we talked about at the start of the episode, this is a great way to finish, or a great way to connect the dots, I guess, is that the Indians strike out a lot of batters as a team. The only guy that you probably, because Carrasco strikes a lot of guys out, Bauer is striking more guys out this year, although he's more likely to give up a hit to center field. But like the only guy that you would worry about is Josh Tomlin, because Josh Tomlin's the only starter that doesn't strike a lot of guys out. So you could realistically say that the Indians pitchers as a whole strike out enough batters where they can minimize Kipnis' risk in center field.
Yeah, I've definitely made that argument before.
Yeah, I know you have.
All right, so did you forget my Pope joke?
No.
I didn't tell it. Did you forget? You didn't forget that I was going to tell a Pope joke?
I didn't forget it. You made a Pope joke last week.
No, I didn't. Did I?
You did.
Did I tell the Pope joke last week?
I think you did. Well, tell it again.
No, I just said it. I said at the end of the episode, I have a joke about the Pope.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. I thought you had one.
Oh,
you said you were going to and you didn't. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so I said I was going to say it this week, so I got it. That's what on the episode.
All right.
Okay, so the Pope is going to Boston, and this limo driver has been asked to drive the Pope Mobile.
The Pope Mobile.
Yeah. So the limo driver. What? No, you've never seen the Pope Mobile?
I've not.
It's got like a glass box in the back or whatever. So the limo driver. The thing is, like, he liked to fuck with Yankee fans. So he'd like speed up and like almost hit the Yankee fans, right, when he was driving. But he knew he was driving the Pope, and he's like, I can't do this. I got to be on my best behavior. I got to be perfect. So he's driving down the street and he sees the Yankees fan, and he like thinking like, oh, I want to. And no, I can't. I'm with the Pope. I got to behave. And then he drives by him, and then he hears thud. And he looks back. He says, what was that? And the Pope goes, don't worry, I got him with the door.
Wow.
I love that joke.
That actually is pretty good. I will give you
credit.
That's a pretty good joke. I think I've heard that was another in different context.
I have another really good Yankee joke I just remembered.
Oh, okay. I guess finish it.
I'll save it. Remind me next week. I have a really good Yankees rape joke.
Oh, this is going to be awkward. Okay.
Everyone loves those.
So next week is our last regular season episode, isn't it? Next Sunday?
I thought you were going to say it's our last episode ever because
it might be. No, it won't be. There's another Sunday. I forgot. They end on October 1st, not next Sunday.
Yeah, so we got a couple weeks left.
2 weeks of bad jokes left. Wonderful.
What?
2 weeks left.
I have a lifetime of bad jokes left.
You guys can never follow him at Burning River BRB.
I can't tell these jokes on there because I've made a promise that my Twitter is a clean area that is safe for anybody to follow. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter. You can be 75. I don't care. You can follow me, and I'll never swear. I promise. I will never say negative things about somebody out of context. Never make ad hominem attacks on people. It's strictly business. I may say a player isn't very good, but I'm talking statistically and not about his moral compass or his value in life.
I've made no such promises.
So you can follow me. Yeah, Justin's Twitter is pretty shitty. It was better today. He made one good joke. So.
Was that Was that my whose line is it anyway joke for Angel Hernandez?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that was a really good joke.
I mean, I'm sure
enjoy-
it's been made a million times, but it's fine.
I'm sure it has. I don't claim to be original. I just claim to make the good ones and provide my own context, hopefully. Anyway, Angel Hernandez was awful again today, which is no surprise to anybody.
Yeah. No, and he cost the Indians 2 runs.
Yeah, he sure did. That should have
So,
had strike 3 on Brandon Moss. Although I
Yeah.
assumed that Brandon Moss wasn't going to get a hit regardless because Brandon Moss versus left-handers is usually pretty awful, which this Royals team is terrible. Do you know that? I have to look this up. I don't know.
So it's supposed to be over.
It's supposed to be over. Now I got to look at it because I'm pretty sure Brandon Moss makes more money than Corey Kluber or Brandon Moss makes
$3 an hour.
okay. He's guaranteed. Oh, he's only making 3.75 this year and then 7.25 at next year. So he'll make more money next year than Jose Ramirez, but for now he is making more money than Jose Ramirez only because Ramirez's contract does not kick into 2018. So next year he'll still make more than Jose Ramirez, and next year he'll still make. This year he still makes more than him, and next year he'll make almost as much as Corey Kluber. That's pretty awesome. Go Royals. Go Royals.
Is that enough? It's enough for me.
I mean, I could talk shit on the
enough
Royals
for you?
all day. I don't think there's a team I hate more in baseball than the Royals right now. So I'm cool with that.
I think it's time for me to sing my song.
Oh, we should make a mention of Eric Hosmer and his. Did you see his comments after the game on Friday when they had the streak?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't care. Did you see my comments on it?
I did not.
Well, it was today after he. What happened? Maybe he got a single and he was like at first and he was talking some shit or something like that. And I quoted Dr. Dre and saying the Indians can say to the Royals that they have to jump and swing up to hit him in the knees.
I did see that. Yeah.
You don't know that song, do you?
I don't know the song. I did see your joke. I know
it's Bodyguard by it's Eminem and Dr. Dre, and I believe they're talking shit on 50 Cent.
I'm sure it's a good.
It's a fantastic song.
I'm sure
it's
is
great.
They don't make bad songs, so I'm sure it is.
No, it's really good. You want my song now?
Sure.
You can turn this thing on.
That's how we're ending it. Okay. All right.
It's a parody song.
Okay. I'm gonna hit the
balls go out, runs come in. There ain't no baseball player like Tyler Naquin. That's it.
Oh, okay. Good night, everybody.